Today on our 2015 GMC Terrain, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Universal High Power Diode Wiring Kit, part number RM-154. Now this is what you're going to get in your kit. You're going to have the proper wiring to go from your RV to your vehicle. You're going to have your diodes, which what these are going to do is basically you would splice into your taillight. You have one wire that runs in here, the other wire runs in here, and one wire that runs to your RV. What this is going to do, it's going to keep your wiring from your RV transferring over to your vehicle side. Same from your vehicle side over to your RV. It's going to keep them split apart so they work as one when you have it hooked up to your RV. When you don't have it hooked up to your RV, just to your vehicle, then it's just going to work the vehicle side. We're going to take our wire, go ahead and open it up, get it stretched out. We're going to take one end from our 4-pole, or go ahead and cut them off. And I'm going to take my other end of my 4-pole, I'm going to cut that off also. Go ahead and just kind of spread these wires apart a little bit. We're going to be converting this 4-wire onto a 6-pole to connect to our RV. We'll be using part number 47054. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of this and we're going to push it right up here on the top. We're just going to leave some of it dangle there so we can hook into our adapter. We'll go ahead and splice these back. So now that we have our wire stripped, you have your ground wire, you have your tail lights, you have your left turn, and you have your right turn. On the back of our connection, we're going to have 6 spots to connect to. Now we're going to be using 4 of them, and they're marked appropriately. Now with today's application, we won't be using the extra 2 connections. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our cap, and we're going to push it up on our wires, and we're going to take our 6-pole connector. I'll start with my tail lights. Take a Phillips screwdriver. We're just going to tighten those into spots. Take my white wire, which is my ground, into the ground position. Go ahead and push it down in the spot. And we're just going to move around and connect all of them. So now we're just going to kind of leave this loosely installed. We're going to come back later on, and once we get it all connected, determine it's all working, and we're going to fill this in with silicone. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to run our wire back to the back of our vehicle. Let me get that going, and I'll show you how I did it. So what I did is I just ran right above the frame here. You can see a couple of zip tie spots. Just try to keep it away from the heat as much as possible. You want to try to stay away from any moving parts. So I just went right over the top of this frame here and underneath. Attached these hard lines here. Just followed them down. Now I cut my ground wire here. I'm going to ground it somewhere in this area. And then ran the rest of my wiring. I just followed these hard lines all the way up. Came up in here, over top of all this, over top of this frame, and around over to the back over here. Zip tie to this existing wiring. And what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to take this, I'm going to go directly up to the tail light. And then when I run over to my other tail light, I can run back behind this bumper here with my other wiring. So what I did is I cut my ground wire here, and the extra wire I'm going to hold on to because I'm going to need a jumper wire from the back. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to go ahead and strip this back. We'll take our ring terminal and we'll crimp it down. Make sure you got a good snug fit. I'm just going to put a little bit of electrical tape right around this end here, kind of help protect it. Connect it right back here. Take a self-tapping screw. Before I tighten it down, since I have this little extra, I'm going to move it to the side. Make sure you got a good snug fit. And I'll probably take another zip tie, maybe zip tie that up. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take our green one. It's going to be our left turn signal or passenger side. And we're going to strip it back. Make sure we give ourselves plenty because we're going to be running across the back of the vehicle over to the other side. Next thing we need to do is remove our driver and passenger tail lights to gain access to the wiring. We're just going to take a flathead screwdriver. We'll just pop these caps off. We're going to have 2 of them. on this side, you're going to have 2 of them on the other side of the vehicle. We're going to take a 10mm socket. We'll just take a plastic trim panel tool. I'm just going to pry back on it to gain access to our wiring. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to unplug this wiring harness here. You're just going to push down and pull back on it. You're going to repeat the same process for the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my wires up from the back of my bumper. Here's a little trick. If you take a bolt and a string, it gives you enough weight that you can drop it down to the open side of the bumper down there. You just tie this off. We'll take our wire, we'll feed it into our nut here, and then we'll go back up top, pull our wire back up. Now we're going to go ahead and test out our wires to determine which ones we need to splice into. Turn on your left blinker. So this is going to be our left turn signal, or driver's side. You can see it's going to the yellow wire. Now your brakes. So that's also going to be our brake light. Brake light and turn signal is going to be our yellow with the black stripe. Running lights. You see there, our brown is going to be our running lights. Right turn. So now we can see our green with our white stripe is going to be our right turn or passenger turn signal. Brake lights. So again, it's going to be the same wire. It's going to be our brake and our turn signal. Running lights, which is going to be our brown wire on this side, just the same as the driver's side. So this is where we're going to do our jump from one side to the other on our brown wire. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and separate the yellow and the brown wire until we get right up here to where we're going to make our connection. So we're going to go ahead and split our brown wire in half. We're going to strip back the wire on both ends. We're going to take one end of our diode connection, put it on one end of the brown wire, crimp it down. Now we're going to take the matching one, other blue one, and we're going to put it on that end. Crimp it down. Make sure you get a good fit. Connect our diode like this. Now what we have is we have our existing taillight wire running through our diode to our wire coming from the front of our vehicle. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to take our brown wire from our wires that we ran from the front. We're going to go ahead and cut it down, make sure we have enough there. Now we're going to take our brown wire. So next we're going to take our wire that we just cut off, our brown wire. We're going to go ahead, strip it back. We're going to take this in and we're going to put these together. Go ahead and twist them. Take your yellow end, crimp it down. Make sure you have a good connection. We're going to take that, we're going to plug it into the other side of our diode. Now what we've just created is our jump wire that's going to go over to our passenger side to connect to our taillights. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to do our brake light and our turn signal. Again, we're just going to cut our wire in half. Go ahead and strip back both sides. Take one of our diode connections here, put it on one end of the yellow wire, crimp it down. Now we're going to take one of the other ones, put it on the other end, crimp it down, make sure you got a good connection. And we're going to take our yellow wire, cut it off, take our third plug for our diode, and make our connection. And we can go ahead, pick our diode back up. Now we have our driver's side connected. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some rubbing alcohol. I'm going to clean off this spot right in here to stick my diodes to it because I don't want these banging around in here. Peel off the double-sided sticker. Push it into place, and we'll do the other one. Like that. So before we put our taillight on, what we're going to do is we've determined, instead of running down underneath the car, zip tying it along the way, and then up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this connection point and this connection point over here on the driver's side. I'm going to do the same thing on the passenger, just to pull this back enough that I can take this wire and I can just drop it right on the inside of this and run it right over to the passenger side. So we'll take a flathead screwdriver, just like we did on our taillights, pop off the little cap, and we're going to remove these two screws here. Start with this one down here. I'll be using a Phillips screwdriver. And on the top one here, I'm going to be using a TS30 star bit. So now that I have this loose, what I want to do is I want to be able to get my wire back behind these two bolts. So when we get to here, we're just going to take this. I'm just going to slowly start to pull it out. What we want is that gap. We're going to take our wire, we're going to shove it down in here. After we get in here, push this back in place, that's going to hold it down. So now that I have my wire, I'm going to go ahead and put this bolt back in. And this bolt, that way I can pull my wires as tight as I need to get them before I run them across. Now we can start taking our wire and just feeding it down into the inside of the bumper here. Now you want to make sure that this bottom lip goes inside underneath the bumper when you put it back in place. And we're just going to do the same thing on this side. Now we're just going to set it back into place here. Now that we have our driver's side done, we can go over and hook up our passenger side. So now we're going to cut down our brown wire. We're also going to cut down our green wire. Go ahead and cut our brown wire. We're just going to repeat the steps we did on the driver's side. Once we have our diodes in place, we can hook our taillight back up. Now we'll go ahead and test our vehicle out using a separate power source. That way, if we have a problem with our wiring on our vehicle, we'll know it before we hook up to the RV. If we have a problem with the RV and our lights on our vehicle are working fine, we know where the problem is. So now we'll go to the right brake, do the right blinker, left brake, left blinker. We'll go to the taillights. So now we'll test from inside the vehicle. We'll start with our brake lights. Left turn, right turn, running lights. So now we know all of our wiring is working properly. We're going to take our bracket that came with our umbilical and we're going to put it on the back of this wire. We're going to take it, feed it up through the wires like this. Now, typically, you could mount it like this, but as you can see, it hits the license plate. So we're just going to take and turn it over. Make sure our holes line up. I think we'll be able to do it like that. Before we get everything connected there, what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to cover this all with silicone. We're going to take our cap, put our cap back on, and then we're going to fill it. And we're just going to go, and we're going to fill all this in. What this is going to do, it's going to help keep this from corroding, and it's also going to help keep our wires in place. So now we'll take our cap, push it over the top like that. As you can see, it's kind of coming out the edge. It's going to help seal it. And we're going to take silicone, and we're going to squirt it down inside here. So now we're going to take our self-tapping screws. We're just going to put them around the front of these rods here and tighten them into place. We're using a 5/16 socket. Keep in mind that this piece on the plug is plastic, so you don't want to tighten it down so tight that it breaks it. Now you can see we have a nice, easy connection point for our umbilical cord. And that'll do it for the Roadmaster Universal High Power Diode Wiring Kit, part number RM-154 on our 2015 GMC Terrain.
Thanks for watching. Click the link in our description below to shop, learn more, or visit us at eTrailer.com. And leave us a comment if you have any questions.